Welcome back to the program. Joining us now from the Pakistani capital is political analyst Javed Rana. Javed, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Umar.
Javed, I want to start by just asking you about the 21-point plan that President Trump has apparently floated to Arab and Islamic leaders. Now, tell me more about that, Javed. Do you think that this plan is going to be accepted by these states or even by Hamas?
I think for the Arab states and for the Muslim states, by and large, they don't have a problem. I can't say about Turkey because Turkey has been pursuing very independent policy on Gaza. But I think the bigger issue here is what is the plan and how that is going to be executed and how that is going to be perceived and by the Palestinian. That is a bigger challenge. But I think to begin with, let's just explore what that plan is in the larger context. That plans include essentially Muslims and Arab countries are being taking over Gaza. And then who's going to head it? Now there are wild speculations and that Tony Blair, the former British Prime Minister, is going to head that administration. I think if that is the case, this is going to spark a lot of resentment among Palestinians. And I think this would be a counterproductive. But again, the bigger problem is that, yes, this plan also include the return of all captives along with those who have already been killed by none other than by the Israeli military. So again, these are just general contours of these plans. And again, the emphasis is also there on the reconstruction. And guess from where this money is going to come out. Not from apartheid Israel, which is responsible for the destruction of the entire infrastructure. It is going to be coming from the Muslim countries, more particularly from the Arab countries. So the bigger question is, Israel is destroying the civil infrastructure, not the military infrastructure, civil infrastructure of Gaza. And who's going to bear the burn? Financially, who's going to compensate it? Muslims, the Arab countries. This is again ununderstandable. But since Americans know that Arab Nash have a lot of money, they don't have a problem to fund any reconstruction, so they are also willing. And I think Pakistan's Prime Minister also sounded very jubilant in his recent press conference when he said that this plan is going to work. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was also part of the meeting, along with the Arab and Muslim leaders with Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump shared all those details. Now, again, Donald Trump is making a tall claim that this ceasefire agreement is going to be there very soon. But we have to see everything with a pinch of salt. Going by the track record, Donald Trump has been shifting from one particular narrative to another narrative. He's been changing his stance. And all of his previous positions, all of his previous initiatives to bring an end to this genocide have met with a defiance in Tel Aviv. Netanyahu is simply not listening to anyone. Donald Trump was pursuing a ceasefire agreement, and we have seen that in Doha, there was an attack on Hamas leadership.
Javed,
and in a similar fashion,
Javed, Trump has said to all the leaders, sorry for interrupting you, Trump has said that he has not approved Israel's plans to annex the West Bank. You're saying that Netanyahu and Trump could have problems, but do you think that he will allow, like Netanyahu would agree to Trump's demands of not annexing the West Bank? Because the UAE also says that that's a red line. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think let's be very frank. There is no red line that UAE can impose on Israel or can impose on USA. UAE has been partner in the crime. Before I come to your specific question, let me also recall here that the UAE's businessmen have been purchasing lands in the East Jerusalem and selling it to the extremist Jews. And this is the UAE's Red Crescent, which has been spying against all these resistant groups in Gaza to Mossad. So UAE is a red line. Let's forget about it. It has no value. But again, the bigger question is, what does it really mean when Israel says that it is likely to annex the occupied West Bank? And what does it really mean when Donald Trump says that he would not let that happen? Let's see what is happening on the ground. There are 2,000 housing units which are being constructed in occupied West Bank. Jenin has almost been taken over by Israel. Jenin is a part of the West. 50,000, at least 50,000 Palestinians from the occupied West Bank have been forced to leave from their homes. Their homes are being destroyed every next day. Hundreds of people, nearly 1,000, probably more than 1,000, have been arrested alone from the occupied West Bank. Their agriculture infrastructure and their agricultural land is being taken over by the settlers, illegal settlers, with the support of Israel's military. Now, let's say Donald Trump is what he says, we believe in him, supposedly, for the sake of the argument, that he would not allow the annexation of West Bank. That means that there may not be any formal annexation of the West Bank, but for all practical reasons, West Bank has already been taken over and it has already been annexed by all practical means. De facto reality is that the West Bank is not under the control of the Palestinian Authority. Palestinian Authority have launched many operations against the resistance groups inside West Bank on the behalf of the apartheid state. So again, all these remarks which coming from the White House, we have to see them with a pinch of salt, because it is the same Donald Trump who have been saying time and again that all these Palestinians from Gaza would be expelled. And there will be a huge infrastructure, new infrastructure, and there will be new settlements. We should not forget that Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of the Donald Trump, has already chalked out the plan for the settlements in Gaza. We should not forget that Israel has been saying time and again that everybody from the Gaza would be expelled, the population would be shifted to somewhere else, maybe in the African countries or elsewhere. So right now, we should not forget that Israel every day is destroying more than 150 buildings every day, both residential infrastructure and both commercial infrastructure. Israel is wiping out all means of living in Gaza. And yet, we cannot see this plan to be implemented anytime soon. Unless we see it on the ground happening, we should not trust Donald Trump. And I think, with few exceptions of Turkey and Iran, we should not trust any Muslim leader, because most of them, either they are compromised or they are so scared of Israel that if they speak up, they would be they would be attacked.
Javed, talking about Iran, the United Nations has reimposed sanctions on Tehran. How is the Iranian government reacting to that?
I think the Iranian government has seriously reacted, and they are saying they are not going to give in to their demands. And more particularly, why would Iran give in to Western demands at a time when apparently they have left no stone unturned to destroy their nuclear infrastructure? Whatever they could have done, they have already done. Now, Iran has already basically taken away the enriched material to elsewhere. Right now, as we speak, West is essentially, through various means, through IE and other organizations, they are after that enriched material, which they suspect could be used to make a nuclear bomb. Now, I think West has come to know that they cannot have a successful regime change operation in Tehran anytime as soon soon in Iran. So that is why we have seen now that they have built up more and more pressure. That is why we have seen that they have now reimposed these one of the worst economic sanctions on Tehran, which are crippling sanctions. But at the same time, I think we should also look at the bigger reality, and the bigger reality is that Iran has managed to establish an alternative regional system, economic system, where it has been smuggling out its oil to India, where it has been smuggling out oil to Pakistan, I mean, through various means, and it is running its economy. And then again, I don't foresee that the China or Russia are going to implement all these international global sanctions of UN Security Council against Tehran. This is a new situation. The new situation is that there is no international order. UN Security Council's resolutions since have met with defiance when it comes to Israel. There is a culture of impunity. Therefore, I think now there are regional blocs who are trying to have their own economic system, who are watching their political interest through China, through Russia. Therefore, I think these sanctions, yes, they are crippling, as it looks like, but I don't think that it will be the West would be able to force Iran to basically come to a negotiating tables on the terms and conditions of Europe, USA, and Israel.
Javed, just before I let you go, I also want to ask you about the Global Summit Flotilla, which is on its way to the occupied Gaza Strip to deliver humanitarian aid and basic necessities. Now, it's near Greece, according to the latest reports. What sort of a reaction could we expect from Israel once it approaches the occupied Gaza Strip?
Well, I think if it approaches before the ceasefire agreement or any peace plan, then the possibility, going by the track record, has always been that Israel is going to detain all of these human rights activists. All these boats are going to be taken over by Israel's brutal military. That has been the track record. My understanding is that they are not going to assassinate these political activists, these human rights activists. Reason being is that this will cause a lot of international backlash at a time when Israel already feels isolated globally. So but this is at the same time, we should not forget that more than a dozen drone attacks have already taken place on their way to Gaza at different locations, at different port locations where they had parked their boats. They came under attack. It looks like that Israel is trying to intimidate them, trying to scare them away. But I think these bold political activists drawn from almost all over the world, they are there, they are determined to reach there, and that is a kind of a wake-up call to the sleeping partners in the region. And my indications are obviously these are not. There could have been a better initiative on their part. There could have been an economic blockade of Israel. I think the situation would have been very different. Now, situation has reached to a tipping point where the common people, these human rights activists, I think they are representing the common people, the sentiments of the global sentiments of common people, and that is why they are daring to Israel. Despite the fact they know it, they are going to be detained. Despite the fact the threat of their assassination is there, nonetheless, they are fast heading towards Gaza, and that is something indeed an extraordinary. At a time when the global opinion has hugely shifted in favor of Palestinians, has hugely turned against the apartheid Israel, I think this initiative is something which must be acknowledged, which must be appreciated across the globe.
Political analyst Javed Rana, thank you so much for joining the program today. It was a valuable insight. Thank you so much for that analysis.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.